welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today is the start of a reading vlog. A couple of months ago I did a vlog where I read 5 Bookstagrammer recommendations and I really wanted to do it again with some more Bookstagrammers. So I have 5 different people picked out. I'm going to read 5 different romances, but first I'm going to talk about each Bookstagrammer and what I like about their page, a little bit about them, and what book that they recommended to me. As always, I will link all the books that I talk about down below as well as the people that I have talked about, and let's get right into it. The first person I have to talk about is Sarah from Hearts in Paper. She basically reads all contemporary romance. She loves small town romance. She is a mom and just a really nice person. I know she also does some reels, and the book I'm reading per her recommendation is Flashpoint by Sky Jordan, and I believe that this is a rather newer series and this is the first book in the series. It's a firefighter romance. The hero is a firefighter and worked with the heroine's husband, who has since passed away, I believe, in a fire, and so it's forbidden. But also the heroine's nervous to be in a relationship with someone who also fights fires because of what happened to her husband. I feel like this has the potential to be really emotional. I haven't read a lot of firefighter romances, so I'm very excited to pick this one up. Then we have Ashley from The Reading Mama, and she is a mom to 1 little girl as well as a teacher. She does a lot of reels on Instagram. They're pretty funny. I think that's what's most popular on her page, and she also reads contemporary romances. The book that I'm reading is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, and that is Royal Reckoning by Emily Silver. The heroine is a princess, and she's really overwhelmed with her royal life, so she kind of runs away and wants a fresh start, and she stumbles into a tattoo shop. And the hero is a tattoo artist, and she ends up applying for a job at his shop, and I don't think he really knows who she is, at least that's what I assume. And this does have a really interesting premise. I don't think I've read many things like this before. I don't usually read royalty romances, but Ashley said that this was really good, so I'm hoping that I love it. Then we have Anna from Anna Reads Here, and I love Anna's page. She does a lot of mood boards, book reviews. She is currently co-hosting a summer challenge, and Anna lives in India, and she is also a writer. I believe she's writing her first novel, and the book that she recommended to me I've also seen other people read before this last year, and that is The Catch by Lauren May. And I believe the hero and the heroine are both on vacations. They meet and they have this spur of the moment romance, and then they learn that they both actually live near to each other. And I believe that the heroine takes on some type of bet that she could continue their romance into the real world and not just on vacation. And I think it has to do with a lot of like pranks and games, and that sounds like a lot of fun, especially for the summertime. And then we have Allison, who is a blue-haired reader, and she is from Australia, and she is also a mom, and she reads a variety of romance. The other people I'm talking about mostly read contemporary, but she reads paranormal and fantasy. She reads a wide range of books, and the book that she recommended to me I also actually have a physical copy of. Just by chance I purchased it at a Half Price Books a couple of years ago, and it is a kind of older title, and that is The Opposite of You by Rachel Higginson, and this is an enemies to lovers romance, which I love that trope a lot. I believe that the hero and heroine both have food trucks and they are rivals, and that sounds like a lot of fun. I love romances that center around food, and like I said, I love this trope, so I'm hoping that this one really works for me. Lastly, we have Covers and Ink, and this is Kirsty and Erin, and Kirsty and Erin are best friends, and they decided to join up and create a bookstagram, which I love that. I know that Kirsty lives in Scotland. I think Erin does as well. They have a lot of gorgeous flat lays, and I mostly talk with Kirsty, but I love all of their content, and it's Kirsty that gave me the recommendation, and it's one that I've had on my TBR, so I'm really excited to pick it up. And that's Beneath the Stars by Emily McIntyre. This is the first book in the Sugar Lake series, and it is a second chance romance. It's small town, and based on the premise and some reviews, it sounds very angsty and emotional, so I'm really excited to pick this one up. I don't know too much else about the book, but Kirsty said she loved it and she thought I would really enjoy it too. So those are the books I'm going to be reading for this vlog, and it is Friday today, so I'm hoping that over the next week or so I can read all of these books. There are a couple new releases coming out next week, so I'll probably have to pause my reading for those, but otherwise I'm going to focus on these for the next week. I'm not sure what I'm going to start with yet, but when I make a decision I will come back and update you halfway through my reading. Okay, it is the next day, and yesterday I started The Opposite of You by Rachel Higginson, and this is Allison's pick. And I was really eager to pick this one up because it has been on my physical shelves for so long, but it is in Kindle Unlimited, so I'm reading it on my Kindle, and I am already halfway through this book and I am really loving it. Our main 2 characters are Killian and I think her name is Vera, and I had the premise a little bit incorrect. Basically, Vera is a chef and she went to Europe for a year to kind of get her leg in the door, and something happened and she had to return home to help her really sick father. and instead of like working in a restaurant, she decides to open a food truck called Foodie, and she has space in her brother's like bike shop's parking lot, so that's where she has her food truck. And across the street is a really renowned restaurant, and Killian is the head chef and he's very well known. He's not so happy about her taking up space across the street, possibly taking some of his customers, but Vera feels that her customers are completely different, so she doesn't really understand why he doesn't like her, and she doesn't really like him. And so it is definitely enemies to lovers, and it is a lot of Killian and his employees coming over and trying Vera's food, him sending her some very funny and nasty notes about how her food tastes disgusting, and she ends up going to his restaurant and tasting his food, and it's pretty funny. I love their exchanges. Their banter is really good. Right now at the halfway mark, they've only kissed once or twice, so it is a rather slow burn romance, which I am enjoying. The only thing that I'm not loving about this romance is there is a lot of prose, there's a lot of internal thought, and there's more internal thought than there is dialogue on the page. And while I do enjoy that, I want a little bit more dialogue and interaction with other people. But other than that, I'm really loving this book, and although I'm not huge on the cover, I think the contents are very, very good. So when I end up finishing this one, I will come back and update you later. Okay, so it's the next day and I finished The Opposite of You by Rachel Higginson, and I really liked this romance. I loved how much food played a part in Killian and Vera's relationship, and this was a very slow burn romance. It took a really long time for their relationship to come on, and also even longer for anything intimate to happen between them. But overall, I really, really enjoyed this. The one problem I had, I mentioned last clip, but that was the narrative portion of this. It dragged on quite a bit and was a little bit repetitive. I also think it would have been awesome to have Killian's POV because we only saw Vera's. So I ended up knocking off a star because of those issues that I had, specifically with the repetitiveness and it dragging on. So I'm going to give this one 4 stars. I did really, really enjoy it, and I'm really glad that I finally picked it up after it was sitting on my shelves for years. So thank you so much, Allison. Now I'm currently halfway through Beneath the Stars by Emily McIntyre, and this is Kirsty's recommendation from Covers and Ink, and I am absolutely loving this book, and I'm kicking myself for not picking this series up sooner. This is about Chase and Alina, and they have known each other since they were kids. Alina was 11 and Chase was 13 when he moved a few doors down from Alina. His little sister was the same age as Alina, and so Alina and Lily became best friends, but also Alina and Chase had a very special bond, and Chase had a very rough childhood. Him and Lily's mom was a drug addict, and the family he moved in with was actually his foster family, so they had a very tight-knit group, and Chase and Alina had a very special relationship that developed into something romantic as years went on, and their romance was very angsty. There was a lot of drama, a lot of angst, and I was super here for it, and something tears them apart. They end up breaking up. Now it's almost a decade later. Chase has not wanted to return to his hometown, but he ends up returning because his adopted dad ends up needing his help with his construction business, and it just so happens the project he is working on is at a local ballet studio, and Alina is the office manager there, which he's kind of surprised by because she is a dancer and he expected her to be a teacher, not the office manager, and she will be his point of contact, so they are forced to be back in each other's lives even though she really doesn't want anything to do with Chase. So far I am really enjoying it. I think it's going to be very tension filled in regard to their second chance romance, and I want to see more angst. I want to see some emotion, and I'm hoping I'm going to love the second half as much as I loved the first half. And I already know who the future 2 books are about, and I am really excited to read their romances as well, just because their characters are pretty well developed in the story. So I will come and update you guys once I end up finishing it. Okay, it's the next day, and this morning I finished Beneath the Stars by Emily McIntyre, and I absolutely loved this romance. It was full of angst and drama, and the chapters that were set in the past leading up to the present really set the stage for Alina and Chase's romance. I do have to say I preferred the first half of the book versus the second half of the book, but I still really did enjoy it. And I like that the author really set up the other characters for their romances, so I am really, really excited to read everyone else's romances. Book 2 is Alina's best friend and brother's romance, and book 3 is Alina's guy friend's romance. I know there's also book 4, and I'm not 100% positive who that one is about, but I'm honestly just so excited to continue on with this series, and I'm kicking myself for not picking it up sooner because it was really, really good. If you like a lot of drama and you like angst, I think this one would really be for you, and I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. I won't be picking up my next read for this video until tomorrow because today I am buddy reading The Mixtape by Brittany Cherry, and I'm buddy reading this with Jess and Sarah over on Instagram, and I am really enjoying it. But I think that next I'm going to pick up Flashpoint by Sky Jordan, which is Sarah from Hearts and Papers recommendation. I haven't read a lot of firefighter romances, but I do enjoy a good man in uniform. So I'm hoping that I love this, especially because it is a forbidden romance. So when I end up picking it up, I will come back and update you tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day, and today I started Flashpoint by Sky Jordan, which is Sarah from Hearts and Papers recommendation. Sorry if I sound a little bit off. I am under the weather, unfortunately. I must have caught a bug over the weekend. But I am halfway through this book, and I am really enjoying it. It is a very quick read. It is around 250 pages. Like I said, it's a firefighter romance. Our main characters are Natalie and Cole, and Natalie used to be married to a firefighter named Evan, and he died in the midst of a fire, and that was 2 years ago, and his coworker and best friend's name is Cole. Ever since Evan died, Cole has kind of been helping Natalie, doing like things around the house and just being a friend to her, but they have feelings for each other, but neither of them are acting on them. Mostly because he feels guilty because that is his best friend's wife, and she never wants to be involved with a firefighter again after her husband died doing his job. It's interesting because we get to see when the husband had died, but then we jump to 2 years later after he has died. So Natalie is talking about her husband and kind of what it's been like having the grief, but we don't actually see that grief and the immediate grief afterward because it kind of jumps 2 years. So that's the only part of the story that's kind of a little odd for me, is we're not seeing all of the emotions that they're talking about. It's kind of just words on the page and telling us about them, but I'm really engaged in the story even with that problem that I have. I definitely will be finishing it today because, like I said, it's a very quick read. So when I finish and pick up my next read, I will come and update you later. Okay, so yesterday I finished Flashpoint by Sky Jordan, and I had mentioned the last time I updated on it that I didn't really like the time jump where we start 2 years previously and then just kind of skip over 2 years with Cole and Natalie, and it had a lot of potential to be really good, but the time jump really messed up the story in my opinion because we didn't get to see the buildup of their relationship. Cole kept talking about how he always had feelings for Natalie, but we didn't get to see those feelings on the page. So while it had a lot of potential, it just fell pretty flat for me. And so I ended up rating this one 3 stars. I would be willing to read more by the author in the future. This one just was kind of a miss for me. I then talked to Sarah about it, who was the person who recommended it, and she said she actually gave it 3.5 stars. So I didn't know her rating when I had selected this book. So she didn't love it either. She just really likes firefighter romances, and this was one that she read recently. She also said she read the second book in the series and didn't really enjoy it. So I don't really know if I'm going to continue in the series. And then I picked up Anna's Pick, which is The Catch by Lauren H. May, and I am loving this book. I am 65% into it. Our two main characters are Kat and Josh. They meet on vacation. They are both vacationing, I think, in like Virginia Beach. Kat is there for like a bachelorette weekend, and Josh is there after a work conference. He is an architect and Kat is a lawyer. They end up meeting in a bar and they keep running into each other on this trip, and they have this little fling there. They come to discover that they actually live only an hour apart from each other. So at the end of the trip, Kat's friends convince her to kind of see where things go with him, even though she's pretty wary of relationships because her last boyfriend really betrayed her trust. And it just so happens that Josh is recently divorced. So she knows it's going to be complicated, but she decides to kind of dive in feet first. And this is a really sweet and fun romance. I love Josh. He is such a great hero and he has a really good head on his shoulders. Kat is a lot more wishy-washy, but I know that she's going to win me over by the end. I can just tell that I'm going to really love her. And even though I'm not even done with this book, I am dying to read the other 2 books in the series. The second one is already out and the third one is coming out at the end of June, but by the time you're seeing this video, it is already published. So yeah, yeah, when I end up finishing this and starting my next read, I will come back and update you then. Okay, it is the next day, and yesterday I finished The Catch by Lauren H. May, and I ended up loving this romance so much. It was so sweet, and it felt very real and relatable. Both of the main characters to me just felt really real. At times I felt really frustrated with Kat because she was doing a lot of self-sabotaging behavior, but the fact that I felt so much toward her, even if it was frustration at times, means that I was really hooked on this story. And I really loved Josh as a character. I thought he was really mature and a really good compliment to Kat. So I'm giving this one 4.5 stars. I loved it, and I'm definitely interested in reading the other 2 books in the series. And then I thought I wasn't going to have time to pick up my last read for this vlog before reading a new release today, but I did because it was only 200 pages and I was able to just knock it out at the end of the day yesterday, and that is Royal Reckoning by Emily Silver. This was Ashley the Reading Mama's recommendation, and this is a little bit outside of my comfort zone because it is a royal romance and it is also a hidden identity romance. Neither of those things are romances I read too frequently, and this is about our 2 main characters, Ellie and Sean, and Ellie is the Princess of England, and she is feeling very pressured by being a royal. She doesn't like it. She doesn't think the lifestyle is for her. So she ends up kind of going off on her own while she's supposed to be on holiday. Instead, she ends up walking into the tattoo shop where Sean works. He is a tattoo artist. He also owns the shop. She ends up walking in there because she sees a help wanted ad and he needs a receptionist. So he hires her. He offers her the apartment that is attached to the shop to live in, and it is their romance. It is a lot of steamy scenes, so it is mostly smut in my opinion. For being 200 pages, the romantic development was pretty low, and this didn't really work for me. The writing wasn't my favorite. This isn't the author's debut novel. She wrote 1 series last year, and then this is her 2nd series, so she is newer on the scene. But yeah, just the writing wasn't really for me, and the fact that it didn't have a lot of romantic development wasn't for me as well. I think to develop the story better, it should have been at least another 100 pages or so. Unfortunately, it was a huge miss for me, and I feel really bad because I really like Ashley's page. I like other books that she's read. This one just didn't work for me, and maybe it has to do with that it's a royal romance and there was this hidden identity. But this one I ended up giving 2.5 stars. So I'm going to quickly go over the 5 books that I read and what I ended up rating them. I first read The Opposite of You by Rachel Higginson, which I gave 4 stars, and this was Allison's recommendation. Then I read Beneath the Stars by Emily McIntyre. I gave this 4.5 stars, and this was Kirsty's recommendation. Then I read Flashpoint by Sky Jordan, which I gave 3 stars, and this was Sarah's recommendation. Then I read The Catch by Lauren H. May, and this was Anna's recommendation. I gave it 4.5 stars. And then lastly, I read Royal Reckoning by Emily Silver. This was Ashley's recommendation, and I gave it 2.5 stars. I'd love to hear if you've read any of these books and if you also liked them or disliked them. I will link all the Bookstagrammers I talked about down below. I really want you guys to check them out. I think you should follow them. I'll also link all the books I talked about per usual down below too. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys on my next one. Bye.